Righto, Jason HOAD. Appreciate coming on, brother. How's your day been?
Yeah, mate, it's been awesome. Pleasure for having me, boys. Really appreciate it, eh?
No worries, good to have you on.
All time, brother. So what's been happening around your roots? You just recently went to Germany, I think, for the World Championships there.
Yeah. We went to Germany for the boys. We had the Egan brothers there, but I think we had 32 fighters that we took over in total. Yeah. And so it was a mixture of, like Muay Thai, kickboxing, submission grappling, and then just like kick light, which is like supposed to be a light form of kickboxing, but it's not fucking light. Yep. I think they go harder than they did in the K1, you know what I mean? So yeah, so no, the boys did well, mate.
Yep. So that was just representing Australia as a whole.
Yeah. So we got 21 medals overall for Australia.
Shit, it's awesome.
And Egan boys got 2 gold, 2 silver, 1 bronze. So they took out nearly a quarter of the stuff, you know what I mean? So
yes,
I was like, take that from little old Gladstone. Yeah.
Yeah. So both local boys, eh?
Yeah, 3 of them, the 3 brothers.
Oh, 3.
Yeah. Wow. So 3 brothers, 15, 13 and 11.
Jeez,
holy, that's awesome. Young.
Yeah. They're little fucking weapons, eh? They choke half the adults out. They're tiny little arms, mate. As soon as they wrap them up, there's just no gap for the little arms. They just choke the adults.
Yep. Wow. You've been training them the whole way?
Yeah. Like they're nutbags, mate. Like if I could mould adults using them, Gladstone would have the biggest fight team in Australia. Like for the last 3 years, they've literally trained probably 6 days a week. Wow. And then when they're not at the club, they're at the gym and they're training or they're running or they're doing their sprints, everything we give them to do. Saturdays, to be in the fight team, you had to make sure you did your 5 kilometre run under 20 minutes, minimum push-ups, minimum spar rounds and stuff. So if you didn't, you had one Saturday if you missed it and fucking see you later. Like if you can't keep up your own discipline for a fight that you're doing, like then you're not in the game. You're not in the game up here. And MMA, Muay Thai is not a sport that you do casually. They're going to lock a cage and someone's going to try and hurt you. So I'll never let someone fight unless I know that they're squared into that fight.
Yeah, that's
awesome. If there's a second of doubt or they tell me they've got a niggling injury, I'm like, mate, what are you fighting for? We're going to have another fight in 3 months. What's the point of going out there getting hurt? Like the sport, no one cares. But I care. I care about the fighter. So these boys, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty deadly going overseas to Germany at such a young age like that for a fight comp. So what, do you travel all together or is it all separate and you meet up at a certain spot? Or? We travelled separately. Like since I left the army, I've never taken my family on a holiday. And in April 2020, we'd bought our first ever holiday to Thailand. And fucking beknownst to all of us, 29th of March, bang, they shut Australia down. Oh, yeah. So we got no refund on our whole trip. Airfares, they gave us 12 months to use it. And as we were locked down. So we lost all that. So this was a big deal. Yep. So we went to Thailand and we went there for 7 days. And then Kenny and I jumped on a plane, travelled to Germany, went over there, ran amok. I got a bit tipsy, which I don't normally do. So there's a fucking story in that. Yeah, I'll tell that one later. And then coached the boys and stuff. But after I coached them, I worked as an official for the Australian team as well. So that way I'd be refereed and judged and that for the 3 days. So so it was mad, but like it's where you network, it's where you make friends and stuff. And it's just good to meet other people from different countries, like without wearing a uniform is good, Yeah,
of course. How many other countries competed in that?
Shit, what did we have? I think we were represented by 38 countries this time. It was the biggest one they'd ever had, 38 countries. And and the boys had hard fights. Like Talon's won, the only competitor they had for him that was in his division when they got to the finals was a bloke that outweighed him by 10 kilos, 2 years older from Ukraine. So Ukraine thought it was just going to be a walkover. Almost broke Talon's foot in like the first minute. And I've never seen Tal grimace like he did, but I just spoke to him through the cage, got him calm, told him that he panicked, not panicked, but he sort of started to turn the opposite way. So I'm screaming at him to turn in, not turn out. And he was waiting because the bloke wasn't supposed to be able to do the entanglement that he did on his leg. So Tal's in like 2 minds. I can see him like looking at the ref, looking at me like, is the ref going to like sort of stop it and go, hey mate, you're not allowed to do it, not allowed to wrap the leg that way. But he didn't. So the bloke's cranking his foot. Saw him grimace, so I'm like, fuck it, mate, let's go. So yeah, he bloody turned around, got on top. the look on the Ukrainian face was funny. Yeah. But then, he jumped into an armbar, slid him up and tapped him out.
Sweet.
Yeah, he was fucking like, he was dirty, like some 15-year-old kid, 10 kilos lighter than him, submitted him. And we didn't find out till afterwards, but he won the junior MMA Worlds the year before the Ukrainian boy.
Oh, wow.
So, so he was like, who the fuck is this kid?
That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, eh?
Fuck, love it, mate.
Yeah.
It's like, it's my bread and butter, eh? Like I love striking, I love punching and kicking, but I love throwing as well. You know, to give them, there's nothing better to hit someone with than the earth. You know, like it's pretty awesome when you smack them with the earth, mate. Like, you know, like it takes them out of their element for a bit if you're doing it. And then we come from a catch wrestling background as well before jiu-jitsu. So our thing from America, from our head coach Joel, is ADD, always do damage. So we're not there to play, you know, patty cakes with people. We're there to fuck you up. And I think that's like, in the way we grapple, like I teach the kids the same thing, not to be grubs, but when you touch hands, you're super respectful, you know, like we're martial artists, but we're not there to be nice to people and sort of play the little game. It's like when we go there, we compete, you know, like get them out of the way as fast as you can. And the Egan boys, they went through like the Queensland Jiu-Jitsu circuit and they were subbing people in 20 seconds and, you know, like, so tells 4 fights and still under a minute. You know, in his 4 MMA fights, like taking them out. So that's our adage, is we work so hard that to us it's a lifestyle, you know, like, and there's not everyone's like that in the club. Like some people are just journeymen, you know, they want to come in, do a bit of jiu-jitsu, test themselves in a comp. So I'm like, just have fun. I don't care if you get tapped. I don't care if you tap someone. If you're loving it, like that's a good day. Yeah, and then you got people like the Egans that are just like, we're going to kill everyone. You know, so it's like there's differences we have. Yeah. So, like, and then you got killers like Darcy as well, you know, like he was a headhunter. So like he would never take a backward step. So coaching him was another sort of way to approach someone when they fought, you know, like he wasn't like the same person that could come in and do a bit of boxing, a bit of Muay Thai and stuff. Like he was in there to bang. Yeah. You know? So you got to mix those people together. And
so you're training Muay Thai as well, or kickboxing, or you do mixture?
Do all of it, yeah. Like the first art I started in when I was 4 years old, I started in Kyokushin, which is like K1 kickboxing came from Kyokushin. Kyokushin's all bare knuckle, but you're not allowed to hit to the head. You're allowed to elbow to the body, hit to the body, bare knuckle. You're allowed to kick to the head, knee to the head, but you're just not allowed to punch to the head, you know, like go figure. Yeah, you know, like, but then K1, they sort of went, hey, let's put gloves on. And from that, like Kyokushin fighters, Sam Greco, you know, Dolph Lundgren, Michael Jai White, all these like famous people, they all started in Kyokushin.
Whereabouts is that? Sorry.
So it's like the biggest karate in the world.
Kyokushin. Oh, sorry, it's an art. Sorry,
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So it's an art, and it's literally labeled the strongest karate. Like Sosai Masayama, the founder of it, he used to demonstrate, you know, fighting bulls and killing bulls bare hand and stuff, like smacking off their horns and shit, you know.
Yeah,
so,
true.
Yeah, so
is that the same art Bruce Lee?
Jeet Kune Do. So he did Jeet Kune Do. So like coming from a Chinese background, you know, like with Wing Chun and stuff, like Ip Man was a great instructor for him.
Yep.
But again, he had that same sort of philosophy for me growing up. Is my dad grew up doing judo before he did Kyokushin, and so he always tried to blend the two worlds together. It's like it's great to punch and kick people, but you know, like once you throw them, you know, and you take them out of their element, Jace, like, because especially I love playing footy and stuff. So as soon as he had me home teaching me judo and shit, it just sort of blended the worlds. And that's what Bruce did, you know, is he found that it was more effective when he was able to combine the striking and the grappling arts. So yeah, I think it's End of the Dragon at the beginning.
Yep.
You watch him doing like with Bolo Young.
I think I heard somewhere he was kind of the one that brought mixed martial arts to the world stage in a way, because it seemed very disrespectful to mix arts with each other. Yep. So I think him bringing that, and look at it today, you got like the UFC and all those tournaments.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like that's what he said. Like, you know, like even though he did like trapping hands and like worked all that sort of aspect of Wing Chun and put it into, you know, Jeet Kune Do and stuff. Like he talked to people, when I fight, I'm not going to use trapping hands on someone, you know, like that's a development within a system. If you come and attack me on the street, I'm going to kick you in the nuts and, you know, eye gouge you. You know, like I'm going to fight to the situation, But if we go to a Wing Chun tournament, I'm going to fight you with trapping hands and everything else, you know? So that's why I grew up. He was like the OG for me, you know, him and Sosai, which was just kick trees, break wood, break baseball bats. And so here I was, this young little maniac just by myself, just trying to break everything I could, you know?
I think I've seen those videos of you on even beside the river there with the rocks and smacking them up. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, me back, I had a real bad slip out with me back because I broke it in Baghdad and I couldn't kick. I couldn't do anything. And the doctors, I went down to the spinal clinic and it's when they banned me from actually doing jiu-jitsu off my back. And so I was so pissed that I needed someone to take it out on. You can't just go grabbing people in the head and smashing them. You know?
That's the next best thing.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I've always been, I want to challenge myself no matter what. You know, if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm doing it now. You know, so as soon as he said, you can't do this and you can't do that, I was holding pads for Kenny and like we were getting him ready for his Australian title. And we went outside, we just did a 2-hour pad session. Like, well, fuck, I pumped him. We sat down outside and I went to stand up and my back completely slipped out. And so I hit the ground and I'm like, oh, fuck, it's not good. So I tried to crawl over to his RAV and I tried to pull myself up in his seat, but every time I tried to lift myself up, he was trying to help me. I'm like, fuck off, cunt. I got it myself. I'm very, like, I'll always just do shit myself. And then when I realized that my legs weren't working again, I was like, this is not good. So they, Kenny called the ambulance. They picked me up and they whacked me full of all sorts of stuff in hospital. And then they're like, mate, we've given you enough to knock out a racehorse. We legally can't give you any more painkillers or anything. And yet your blood pressure was 220 over 120. So they were showing like the system was going through extreme pain. Still couldn't move my legs. And so they flew me, DVA, Veterans Affairs, flew me back down the Gold Coast to my spine specialist. And they said, mate, do you want to be in a wheelchair? I said, no, of course not. And he goes, that's the next step, mate. He goes, your spine is so damaged. And he goes, so you have to stop doing the stuff like, because he knows about all my jiu-jitsu. He's followed everything. And he's like, mate, because I got to send him my videos. I had to send him all sorts of stuff, like things like that. When I've put my back out, I'll be like, yeah, this is the exercise I was doing. So I'd pull up a YouTube video and say, this is like, explains like, this is how I sort of did it. And he'd be like, mate, your 6 discs are smashed. And then you're turning it into a ball and opening all those discs up and hoping that something's not going to go wrong. He's like, you're a fucking smackhead, Jace. Like, you really are not helping yourself. And so when he said, you are in a wheelchair the next time you do this, and I was like, fuck. So I came back so pissed off at the world. Jiu-jitsu for me, fellas, is like living with PTSD and shit. Jiu-jitsu was, for me, it was, yeah, some people meditate, some people go to yoga and stuff, but rolling on the mats with your mates, I'd always put myself in the worst positions possible. For me, it was never about trying to beat my students. I have always put myself at a disadvantage to try and let my students try something. You know, let them try that choke, let them try that armbar. When they start getting the armbar, then I'll defend it, you know, like not one of those egotistical instructors that is just like smash everyone. Yeah. You know, I'm just like, use me as a training tool because then I can sort of see if you're getting better, I'm going to stripe you or promote your belt and stuff. And so for me, that was the journey. And so taking that away from me really fucked with me up here. And so we got to the rock smashing bit and I was like, I want to break stuff. Someone in Rockhampton really pissed me off and I was to the point of getting in the car to drive up there and see him. And Joe was like, you do it, like, don't come back. That's my wife. My happy life, happy wife syndrome. So I mean, okay, I drove out and I knew there was a river beside mum and dad's. Well, I'm just going to break rocks. And that's what that was. So that's what that was. And that sort of started it. And I was like, hey, that was fun. You know, so I started going back there every week.
What is the skill behind that? Like, how does it not hurt to break rocks and all that? I've never understood how like karate and stuff, how they smash all the bricks and all that. I've never understood.
It does fucking hurt. I think like, yeah, when you're learning, it really does. Like, and for me, like conditioning, like I just introduced the boys to a lot of different conditioning techniques. So like all this, like you can see like the run of scabs up there and shit. So I introduced them to different techniques last week and they absolutely loved it. You know, I said, you know, like nothing good ever grows from a place of comfort. You know what I mean? Like you got to put yourself in a place of being uncomfortable to start finding where your limits and stuff are. So I'm like, the body is an amazing machine. If you bash your bones in your shin, they're going to, like, I've broken these bones that many times, but what they do is they grow back harder and they grow back thicker, you know? So then you start losing the nerve endings start getting a little bit dull. They're still always there. But if you don't keep it up, it's going to fucking hurt. Like the next time you start, and then you're like, oh God. So getting into those rocks and that, I hadn't done any hand conditioning or anything. Like most of the stuff was jiu-jitsu, wrestling, you know, training the boys holding pads and stuff, but not, I used to grow up like smacking them on wood, smacking them on trees and stuff, and conditioning forearms, wrists, all that sort of stuff, knuckles into trees. And it gets hard, but after a while, so I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to go and break this guy's skull, so I'm going to break this rock instead. And yeah, I did that. It hurt, but it started hurting less and less. But there's one video where you see me smacking it open hand and I flick my finger.
I think I've seen that, yeah. I think that's one I watched.
I actually chipped and broke the bone in my finger, eh? But I got angry at myself for doing it. That's why I sort of a whack and I go, and I hit it again because I picked the biggest one that I could find that I was like, right, this has got to be some big cunt skull. And if I can break this, I can pretty much crack any skull I can find. That's why I got that one. And I wasn't going to give up until I got it. But there's a sharp little jagged part sitting on the side. And that's the part that when I came down, I hit here and my finger wrapped straight around it. Oh. And later on that night, it was just all like bent and green all the way up here. So I was like, oh, go back and do it again, you know? Yeah. But yeah, it's not something most people do. Like you got to be that little bit psychotic to, you know, like it's, but again, if I was able to fight and stuff, it's on my record. I'm not allowed to fight. The story with that is as I was getting out of the army, I got 22 official injuries on file, 14 of which I could have discharged for at any time. And when I applied to do a jiu-jitsu tournament, like being under Veterans Affairs, they have to approve every sport. So I submitted all the paperwork and that, asked if I could compete in jiu-jitsu, if they'd still cover me if I got hurt and stuff. And it went to the office in there and some old warrant officer was like, what's this jiu-jitsu shit? And someone else said, oh, you know, like judo, it's like judo. So they pulled up YouTube and were like, judo. And the first thing they saw on this judo highlight was everyone getting thrown on their back. Oh. And they were like, you got a broken back, mate. No. And I'm like, oh, hang on. I can like take it to the ground. And they're like, no. So it's literally stamped on my file, never to compete in combat sports. After I did that one that I was with Kenny, they even wrote out I'm not allowed to jog anymore. I wasn't allowed to do all sorts of stuff. Like it's just, so it hits you up here, you know, like when you've always been that alpha male, you run, always at the gym, always doing stuff like that physical for me, the harder it was, the better I felt mentally. And so when I lost all that sort of shit, it really hit me in the head. So I had to kick more baseball bats and break more rocks, you know? Like,
yeah. So where did Beast start? Because are you the founder of Beast as well?
Yeah. Yep.
So when abouts did you start Beast Championship?
Or the fight night?
Well, you got the fight night, sorry, but Beast itself, just the training facility.
Beast, Beast Martial Arts, and we've changed it to Beast Training Centre now. I won't say the name of the club, but when I moved up here from Brisbane, I got out of the army and I wanted to look after mum. Mum was struggling with fibromyalgia and, you know, rheumatoid arthritis. So Joel and I said, let's go back to Gladstone. You know, it's a beautiful place to raise a family. You know, in Brisbane, to go anywhere was like an hour to go one spot, an hour to go back.
Yeah.
Here, 10 minutes to every side of town. And so we did. We came here. I went to the club and I saw that they were training on like 10 mil mats. And I was like, holy shit. So I donated all my mats to them because I had like my Brisbane club. So I donated all the mats to them. And I said, look, in return, you can have the mats. I just want my two kids at the time that were old enough. Charlotte was only a baby. I said, I just want them to train and have fun if they want to train. And they were getting yelled at for everything. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is not martial arts. Like, you know, so you don't sit behind a table and then get 14 and 13-year-olds to run your class and then come out and start yelling at kids. And I was like, talking to mates and I'm like, is this what it's always like? And they're like, yeah, Jace. So I then said, mate, like, went and chatted to him coach to coach or like sensei to sensei. And I was like, mate, when do you teach? You know, and he's like, oh, only when I want to. And I'm like, but you got the knowledge, mate. You know, you got the knowledge. Like these kids, like they're a sponge. If you teach them and whatever you say, they're going to pick up and they're going to learn from that. But they're not going to take the same 13, 14-year-old kids seriously. And because they still see him as like a, you know, an older kid, like a big brother, big sister type thing. And I said, but yelling at kids, mate, like it's the worst thing in the world, because if you make them scared to train, they're not going to enjoy it. So persisted for a couple of weeks, and then every time I went in, like mates that, because I used to train with them when I was a young fellow. Like I started Muay Thai with them when I was 15. And so I did it a couple of years with them there. And so when I came back, he's like, are you going to teach? And I'm like, no, I just want to like literally, you know, start my own, because I have my own clothing brand and that going. Well, I'm just going to build my brand and that build the stuff that I'm making. No interest in starting a club. I've just closed one down after 5 years. So I rolled with this person, and every time it was time to submit them, they'd go, oh, stop. And they'd run over to someone else on the mat and go, oh, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And I thought, oh, okay. I thought legitimately, you know, like maybe the coach saw something and a fair deal. So come back over, started rolling again. Caught him in an armbar, and he's like, oh, stop. I've got to run over. And I was like, oh, fucking shit. So third time I was like, yeah, I'm not happy with this. Like coming from Brisbane and Gold Coast, everyone rolls hard, but everyone's respectful. And if you catch me in something, I'm going to tap. No ego. You know what I mean? I'm just going to be like, hey, what did I do wrong? You know, like, what did I do wrong so I don't do it again? Like you sort of share that information. The worst thing to do in jiu-jitsu was have an ego where someone starts catching you and you start making up excuses. So I thought, okay, I won't do the armbar. I took his back and started choking him, and he's like, oh, stop. And I was like, I just stood up and I'm like, mate, what's going on? Like, just tap and we reset. And so some of his students started apologizing to me and stuff. And I said, is this what it's like all the time? And I said, okay, maybe I got him on a bad night. I know what it's like as a coach. Maybe got on a bad night, didn't want to be tapped by someone else that's not from his club. So, you know, discretion, the better part of valor for it. So I thought, I'll just be kind. And then he gave me these forms, and he's like, for you to join up now, because now that you're trained tonight, you got to sign this no teaching waiver. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, oh, it's compulsory because you've come from another club, you know? And I'm like, yeah, it was my own club, mate. And so I read it, and I said, it's a 5-year no teaching waiver so that I couldn't teach anywhere within Gladstone, Boyne, Tenham. And I'm like, look, mate, as I said, I've got no intentions to start a club. But I'm not signing no 5-year waiver either.
Was that just to participate in his club? You had to sign saying you weren't going to teach. So I was going to train for free, but he just wanted me to sign this waiver.
Oh, yeah, right. After donating mats as well.
Yeah. So this is like a couple of weeks in. So it gets to the point where I'm talking, he goes, oh, Jace, it's not me. Sorry, guys, I'll just fix this arm. Yeah, right. He's like, oh, it's not me. It's such and such. I said, oh, is it really? Went outside, rang him, and I'm like, hey, I'm on the phone to him. He said, it's not his idea, it's yours. And he goes, well, what do you expect me to do? You've just come from Brisbane. Everyone's up here saying, you know, you're going to get Jace to start running MMA classes and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so that's the true side of it, mate. I wasn't opening a club, but now I am. That's how Beast was born. Next week, yeah, your mum was like one of the first people there, bro. Yeah. So the next week we opened Beast, and that's how it started.
So what year was this?
2015.
Yep.
Yeah. So
going on 8 years now.
Yeah. So yeah, we started, I think 12th of May 2015.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. And then we've just sort of like, if you see, we don't do much advertising and stuff. We just let people come. Like a lot of people come and they go, and I love that. Because I want the people that are there for the right reasons.
Yep.
There's no egos, but fuck, we train hard.
Yep.
You know, like we train hard, and other people come over and be like, hey, I'm a black belt at such and such. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. Like I respect that art, but just jump in the class and see where you fit, see where you fit. And then my white belts are absolutely toweling them up, like double legging them, hitting them up against the cage, ground and pound. And they're like, And I'm like, yeah, there's different levels, you know, like different levels. And
so does all the grading of the belts, does that go from you? Like,
yeah. So
you could be grading a belt maybe a bit harder than somewhere else. Is that what you're
100%,
saying?
100% is like, so I registered my own art in 2010 and 2012. It got approved from the Australian Martial Arts Council. But I didn't go out to start my own art. I was promoted to fourth dan at the time, fourth dan black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. And my kaicho, Jock said, Jace, because I incorporated Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling, you know, Muay Thai, everything into it. And he's like, all the other instructors are like, my kids are coming to me saying, why aren't you teaching what Jace is teaching? And they're like, we don't do double legs, you know, like we don't put on mitts and wrestle, you know, wrestle nonstop around the class. And he said, you've literally developed your own art within an art. And he goes, so you have my blessing to change the name. And I'm like, oh, I didn't want to do it because I knew that several people had got to the level of being black belts with him and then turned around and done that and like just started their own club and competed against him. And I said, no, Jock, I can't do that, you know. And I started saying why. He's like, no, this is different. I will still be your sensei. I will still grade you, but I can't have you teaching this because I've got like 8 other black belts that are like, we can't do that shit, you know. So I'm like, okay, if you're asking me to, respectfully. So I submitted all the paperwork, spoke to like, there's a council of like very high ranking and very respected martial arts instructors around Australia. Yep. And I sent them my whole grading curriculum. Based it off, you know, like Kyokushin belt colors and stuff like that. They then, I had to justify why the teachings were done at certain stuff. And because I had like a couple of different black belts in different arts, they said, you will start your art at third dan. So I was like, yep, sweet. So when they did that, I actually started myself at second dan because I thought, okay, if they started me at third dan, I want to start a little bit below that. And then Jock got up me and stuff, you know. And so the next time he flew down from Townsville, he promoted me to third dan anyway because he's like, no, mate, like you earned that, so keep it. But I've always been of the mindset that I should be working harder than everyone. You know, if it doesn't come easy for me, then they're never going to whinge that it hasn't come easy for them. And so, yeah, our art is like easy 10 years probably, you know, like for an adult black belt to get to Shodan first dan. Because there's so much to learn. You know, there's all the elements of boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and then case-by-case basis as well. If you're 52, I'm not going to expect you to come in and smash like, you know, someone like Darcy who's just going to run rings around someone. I look at them as well and go, mate, you got a broken back. You're not going to do this, 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 and this, but you're dedicated to the art. So I've had one bloke that's been with me now since 2009, and he's about to get his black belt for his first dan, you know, like he's over in Japan at the moment. He just went over and competed in the Kyokushin world tournaments and stuff. So I can't wait to strap him up. Yeah. So it's a reward.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, like, and then you got Talon who's running around as a brown belt and people look at him and go, 15-year-old brown belt. And then they spar him and get, you know, like human pretzel. It's like, hey, I'll fold your clothes while you're wearing them. You know, like, and then they're like, I understand why he's at that level, you know. So it's sort of like different. It would be wrong of me to have someone like that at 2 belts or 3 belts below, because then people would be like, man, I'm never going to get there. You know, so it's on that individual case by case basis, but it's fucking hard. It's so hard.
So how many belts are there? Obviously black's your highest.
So start at white. Yep. So white, you're probably going to be white in the system easy for 1.5 years, you know, to 2 years. And like there's 6 levels of white, because to me, I want the people to stay that aren't in it for the belt. Because, you know, if a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to get my belt every 3 months, like no shit to other clubs. Like some have a compulsory grading every 3 months and you got to pay $50 to attend the grading. Then you got to pay $30 to get a little piece of fucking tape put on your belt. And there's no fees for grading with me. I make your belt. So like once you've got your belts, like I custom make them as well for jiu-jitsu, for Shimbudokan, which is like literally MMA and a gi. I buy all the belts and I present it because I'm like, for me, it's an agreement between you and myself. Like you're doing the work. if you've done the work, the honor should be on me to grade you. And I've always said, I want Shin Budokan to be one of the last places in the world where money can't factor into it. And so every time someone gets a stripe or a grading, like belt promotion, I say, what's the only way to get a belt? Like, hard work, dedication. What's the only way to get a belt? Hard work, dedication. So I drive it in. I say, can mum and dad buy this? No. Can you buy it? No. I said, we have an equity. It's called sweat equity. Sweat equity is what I teach my students. Like our equity and our currency is sweat and blood. Once you've earned that right, everyone will look at you and go that you've earned that promotion. But as soon as someone exchanges money in martial arts, I think like that shouldn't be about money. It's a fighting art. Everything else you can do, you can sort of pay for these days. If you've got enough money, you can sort of get anywhere and go anywhere in life. So I want my dojo, and Blackwater's the same. We've got a few other dojos. We've got other ones opened up overseas in Philippines and stuff. And there's another 8 about to come online that have sort of like gone, we love your art. It's so hard. It's so real. We've watched all the videos. We've watched everything you're doing. How do we join? And I'm like, okay, I can't fly to America right now, but let me know your curriculum. Let me know what you're doing, And we just had another one come online 2 weeks ago down in New South Wales. Because I've been watching you for the last 6 years. Love to come under you. What do I need to do? I'm like, you don't need to do nothing. Like, I don't want money. I don't want anything else. Just be loyal to your students and be loyal to the art. That way, if there's no money, no one can ever say that you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you posting that if people wanted to watch it themselves?
I actually haven't advertised it. They've just sort of like contacted me after watching videos, like mainly my Instagram.
So they're watching the videos on your Instagram. That's where they get it from.
Yeah, Instagram. Yep. They're like, fuck, I love that shit. And they're like, I love how you made that one move that I thought was so hard but so simple. Like, what's the basis behind it? And I'll message them for ages on Instagram and stuff. And then they're like, hey, I haven't even had my coach won't even spend 5 minutes explaining this. You've followed up with me and said, how'd you go with your technique? Like, where did you get stuck? How'd you go? And they're like, if you're willing to help me for free, like, how do I get into the system? And I'm like, oh, mate, I'm not trying to recruit you, but if you want to get into it, like, this is the thing. It's not going to be easy. And so like Philippines, they've been doing that stuff for 3 years now. For 3 years. So they've like sort of gone through all this grading curriculum, and 6 of them were already black belts, 2nd dan, 3rd dan and stuff. But they all dropped back to brown belt because as soon as they saw the curriculum, they were like, yeah, we can't do all of that. So, and I was like, mate, you start where you want to start and I'll assess you where we are. So I'll actually fly to the Philippines next year and hand out all their gradings for them.
Awesome.
So like I said, they're in there for the right reasons,
Yep. So what do you base your jiu-jitsu off? Do you go off Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is the biggest of the jiu-jitsu arts?
Yeah.
So they all have their slight little modifications. Have you gone off kind of that art, or what have you gone off mainly?
Jiu-jitsu with like catch. Catch wrestling is the oldest wrestling in the world. And it's fucking brutal, Like we call jiu-jitsu the gentleman's type sport. There's nothing gentlemanly about catch wrestling. And believe it or not, I'm the head of catch wrestling for Australia. And I've had quite a few people ask to come under catch wrestling. And I refer them on to, my head coach in America. And he'll be like, Jace, they're just not at that level, mate. Like, they're great at what they do, but they haven't quite got the catch wrestling mentality. And catch is where that ADD, always do damage, came from. Like Randy Couture, people like that, they were all originally catch wrestling. So that's why when they got to the UFC, they started fucking up the heavyweight division because people were like, I don't know how to counter this. This isn't jiu-jitsu. It's wrestling, but it's not normal wrestling. So people like that, and Eric Paulson and stuff like that, people that were like pioneers of MMA, and people like these guys are destroying people with submissions that they just hadn't seen in the jiu-jitsu world. So the catch wrestling is like jiu-jitsu on steroids. It's a lot of the moves are similar, but I'd say more efficient and more dangerous. Say I teach at a Kimura, for example, you go and do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, get a Kimura position, start cranking the shoulder and stuff up. And everyone will get it. And, everyone I can't do it on this shoulder, but everyone will sort of get like a little bit around, and they'll start going, oh, I'm going to tap. Whereas when we do it, as soon as we've got we call it double wrist lock, I don't just rip you here. I start ripping from your fingers. I start ripping all the tendons this way. So by the time we've started leveraging it, and as soon as I get my other arm underneath and I start elbowing that, your shoulder's ripping already. And so they'll be like, and they'll be like, what did you do? Like, because they're used to this, so they'll get into a competition like Talon's great at it. The little boys are great at it. When we went to Rocky, the boys were smashing them with those sort of locks and submissions. And they're like, yeah, it's just how Jace teaches his catch is it's an economy of movement. Like I want to do the most damage with the minimum amount of effort. So then as soon as we get into like a dogfight position or anything else, I'm going to have plenty of energy for a takedown or reshoot a double leg or, rather than spending all this energy trying to get a Kimura off someone. So I'm a big believer in understanding how the body works. And once you understand how the body works, you know how to fucking rip it apart. And that's like one of the best things about catch wrestling.
So how did you learn all that? Is it just from repetition of like getting people in them holds and then just like trying different stuff while you're in them?
Yeah, there was no catch wrestling in Australia. So I originally, I couldn't find a Sambo coach in the army. So I messaged Vladislav Kulikov in America, and he's a combat Sambo champion as well from Russia. And I said, look, I've bought you DVDs and stuff like that. I've just got a few questions of stuff. So, and he'd be like, hey, no problem. He goes, I'm happy to share Sambo, So I haven't been qualified in Sambo, but I bought all these DVDs and just started studying because I was like, these leg locks, these throws, this stuff that they're doing is brutal. And I love the ability to fuck someone up. and so I'd be like, hey, Vlad, like when you do this, like what's the things that I should be looking for as I execute them? And so I just did that. And then I'd try and practice that myself. And I'd put myself in like the worst position possible. And then be like, right, now I'm going to try and do this. If I can do it at the worst time possible, then I know that this works and I will legitimately teach it. And I've always been a catch and release type of coach that say I catch you on the heel hook, I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to get to the point where you've got to wait to tap and stuff. Like I'm not an asshole to my students. I fucking love them, and I know others will catch them in that and they'll be like, oh, you're not tapping? I'll go a little bit tight. Oh, you're not tapping? Then bang, it's like they've really injured their student. And for what? So we have a catch and release for all the dangerous ones, neck cranks, like, cause catch wrestling is massive on neck cranks, like jiu-jitsu, you're not allowed to do neck cranks and all that sort of stuff. Catch wrestling there's no rules. Literally there's no rules in catch wrestling. Like where they hit the ropes and stuff in wrestling and tag team their mates and stuff out.
Oh, the fake wrestling.
Yeah. So that all came about from real catch is if they were able to touch the ropes, they were allowed to have 3 touches to the rope. And if they had to use the rope 3 times, that's it, end of the match. But if they were caught in like a severe neck crank and stuff and they could reach out and touch the ropes, they sort of got to restart it. But catch wrestling became like fake wrestling, WWE and stuff, because there was money to be made. But back in the early days, those matches were fucking legit. So there's different levels of catch wrestling. Like you got your journeyman level, journeyman level 1 where sort of people do it. And then you got shooter, hooker and ripper, and the names themselves, like it explains, you know what I mean? Like once you're ripper level, like the whole is just rip joints apart, so it's like, it's amazing to learn. It's amazing to know. But we use catch as our biggest basis of jiu-jitsu. And then obviously the great parts of jiu-jitsu we've put into it, the great parts of Sambo we've put into it, so it's sort of like this hybrid wrestling blend where we just try and do as much damage as possible. But we're gentlemen, what I mean? Like, so if someone come to Dojo Stormers to be like, I'm here to fight your toughest guy, I'd be like, fuck him up, like just fuck him up. And we have what we call a club sheriff, but
who's the club sheriff?
It was Ryan, but he's not there at the moment.
I mean, like, what do they do?
So if someone comes in to challenge someone, I'll just go, okay, club sheriff, off you go, mate. So that's normally the guy that's, like that. The best. They're the fucking nutcase that's, they're ready to go. They're as mad as a cut snake and they just want to hurt people, So you just let your club sheriff teach them a lesson. And that was big down in Brisbane and stuff like that. Like people going, I own a jiu-jitsu club. It's better than yours, like my best guy against your best guy. And I'm like, that's, for me, I'd never do that to someone, you know, like I believe for me, I want martial arts and Beast to be a place that can save people. And I always say to everyone, like, if you've got emotional baggage, all I hope is that when you come to class, there's an imaginary hook on the door. You put your emotional baggage on that. You might have had a shit day, fighting with your missus, you know what I mean? Like work could be shit. Everything in your life could be going shit. I want you to grab all that baggage, put it on this imaginary hook, and I guarantee you after 90 minutes of rolling with someone, getting choked, getting armbarred, you become best mates with these people. You're all trying to kill each other in a gentle way. But as soon as you leave, I said, your baggage should be smaller, you know, because you've had that chance. You know, every man should know what it's like to wrestle, you know, to punch, to kick, to find that combat element of who we are. And there's something very therapeutic about it, you know, people said, Jace, how would you solve world wars and stuff? I'd be like, teach them jiu-jitsu, get them on the mat. You know, like you can be a CEO of a company and you can be a floor sweeper that cleans toilets for a living. Once you step on that mat though, you're dead equal. You are dead equal. Outside of life means nothing. You know, like that's your job. This is how you are as a person, you know, so.
Joe Rogan refers to it as the same, He says it's like kind of like it's almost its own language,
It is,
Its own like yoga.
Yeah,
in a way, so.
Say you catch me in a fucking choke and I'm like, holy shit, that's God. Yep. What did you do, man? You know, like, oh, you turned your chin the wrong way and I sunk it in deep. You know, and you're like, fuck yeah, you choked the shit out of me. You know, like it's that sort of thing. And it's like, and that's, your vibe is your tribe. And because I'm that sort of way that I'll be like, if I've got a kid and I'm wrestling a kid and I can see they've got no confidence, I'll make them armbar me and I'll do a big foot stomp and a big thing. I'll be like, oh man, you get me better than the adults do. And they're like, oh, do I? You know, and they fall in love with that shit. And I just want them to be a better citizen for coming to the club. It's why we train foster kids for free and stuff, you know, like veterans for free. Is I want it to be a tool that can help people, you know, to sort of like go, it doesn't matter what life is. If you come to the club once a week, twice a week, you're going to be a better person for it, especially up here.
That's good. You said your father used to teach you when you were young. Is fighting something that's always been in your family? Like immediate family, brothers, sisters, anyone? Yeah, well,
funny fucking story. I was too young to start Kyokushin. So I had to go at the back of the club. So everyone else was doing it. My older brother, my older sister, my mum, my dad, and they're all doing Kyokushin. And I was at the back by myself. And so they made me wait for a year. And then Sensei, Trev finally said, oh, for fuck's sake, Rick, my dad, Rick, put him in a gi and get him in class. So, because I was doing everything that the class was doing anyway. So then I did the juniors and stayed for the adults, and I wanted to spar every adult, and the black belts in the club, I'd try and spar the shit out of them. And, you know, they played with me, you know, like they toyed with me. They could have kicked my ass at any time, but they'd be like, push-ups, nose to the ground, lower, Jace, lower. Come on, you got more in you. And so that started, like Brad Madden was like one of the world, Australian and world champs. And he was my idol growing up because he was just so fast, you know, so talented, but he pushed me every time. So, you know, being 5, 6, 7, 8 years old with that sort of, you know, mentorship, kicking my ass and like one more push up, one more. I remember my arm shaking. He's like, you got one more in you? And I'm like, oh, you know, Senpai said one more, so I got to do one more. And, you know, bang, headbutt the ground and push back up again. And so that's the sort of thing I try and drive in my students now is the saying you'll see on everything for beast fuel, the whole lot is life is a fight, never give up. You know, so it's that try and drive that home.
Growing up, so you started, like you said, then that art there. Whereabouts did you get into the army? So did you get that young or when you were a bit older?
I wanted to go. They weren't taking people at the time when I first applied. So 18, I tried to apply and they said, sorry, it only got reserves. And I was like, fuck, like Gladstone reserves were never going to do anything for us up here. So I was doing my apprenticeship. I applied while I was doing my apprenticeship, and the people that employed me, wood machinists, so doing, you know, cabinet making and wood machining. And they said, if you join the Army Reserve, you're going to lose your apprenticeship. So I'd unbeknownst to me, but a year into it, when I went back up and said, look, as soon as I finish my apprenticeship, I don't care if I'm in the reserves. I don't care what I've got to do, but I want to do as much time in the reserve, so I'm ready to go full time. And they're like, oh, weren't you, like, why did you apply so long ago and leave it in between? They questioned my passion. And I'm like, oh, my work said if I do it, they're going to fire me. And they're like, they can't, mate. And I'm like, we'll tell them that. And they're like, we will. So they gave me all this information to take to the employer. And so basically we had a gentleman's agreement. I fucking hated them. They hated me. So down in Brisbane, I finished my apprenticeship on the deal that the day that my trade certificate was done up, I was leaving and they weren't going to put me back on because all I wanted to do was go to the army. And it turns out that they didn't support the army or anything else like that, and I was like, I'd hated that sort of shit. I'm like, how can you be an old fella, and not support the army? He didn't get drafted or anything. So I'm like, mate, it would have been a completely different thing if he had been drafted and understood what it meant to serve. So I was like, I don't want to work for a bunch of smackheads like that. So I literally finished, got my trade certificate and went straight in, handed my trade certificate into the reserves. And they're like, yep, okay, you're not going away until the end of the year. And I'm like, I'm not working for anyone else until I go. So I just started bouncing. So I did the Army Reserves as much as I could. And so that was 2002. Did the Army Reserves as much as I could, went weekly, went every weekend that I could. And then when I was back, I just bounced. I bounced like 6 nights a week. And yeah, fucking fun. Yeah. As we call it, the pavement arena, eh? You learn how to fight, like what's work and what is bullshit. And that's where I sort of, like, that's another story I can tell you, but that's how I sort of refined my fighting technique, was what is real is brutal and fucking fast, compared to, you and me touching gloves and sparring. Like, we're gentlemen there on the street, like, it's just going to get fucked up real fast if you don't do it. Yeah. So yeah, I did that and then waited. It took 2 years before they opened up full-time enlistment. And all that, you remember the High Readiness Reserve? So basically they offered people to be High Readiness Reserve, but there was no guaranteed work. And I'm like, I got bills to pay. I can't do High Readiness Reserve because if they call you got to go. And I'm like, my boss was never going to give me work as a bouncer if he knew that I was like going to be here Tuesday and all of a sudden Wednesday I'm gone for 3 weeks, So I said, I'll wait till I get the full-time thing. And after I got the full-time thing, that was it. That was the end of me off I went.
Yep. So you said 2002,
yep.
Obviously 9/11 was 2001.
Yeah.
So what was the army like then? Were they, you'd think they would be hiring heaps, wouldn't they? Or
yeah. So that's why I think we were really shocked because like there was such an influx of people trying to join, like that patriotism is like, fuck, 9/11 just shocked the whole world. Yeah. And so that's when literally, like when I remember I said there was a year I had to wait, arguing with my work. Literally I went in as soon as 9/11 happened, and that's when I tried to join straight up then. And they're like, no, like they didn't have the opening of positions because at that stage they still hadn't so it was 4AR back then. So 4AR Commando at the time and SASCATs, they'd already gone. I've got mates that were over there before, like doing stuff, having fun. But as far as the general army, like infantry and everything else, they weren't ready for that sort of stage deployment. They were in Timor, Solomons and stuff like that. So they weren't at a war footing to be able to have a normal commitment as a defense force, as well as go, we're going to now send a battalion or a combat element, over to there as well. So that took a few years to get going. Yeah. And so around 2004 is when they really ramped that up. And that's when it was sort of like testing was still really tough. Nothing like it is today. Holy fuck. Like, it's
so
easier today or
easier today. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well, not that I would know.
Yeah. We've got some real unicorns getting out there these days. Actually. Holy fuck.
What was some training like? What was it like when you were doing it?
Mate, they were still allowed to do shit to you back then. Right, so 2002 when I did recruitment at Camp Pookie, at Kapuka, they're still allowed to hit you, kick you. We called it dead ground counselling, take you over the back and But I said, like one of the corporals that wanted to smack on with me, I said, yeah, I'll let you throw the first punch, but as soon as you do it, I'm going to fucking eat you up. And, because then, like, I can't get charged then. Like, if
he hits you first?
Yeah, if he hits me, then I'm defending myself.
Sweet.
So he'd get charged for, assaulting a subordinate. I get charged for assaulting a superior still. But fuck, it'd be worth it. And I was lucky that when I was going through, I went through with a mate that was a copper at the time. And he said, permission to speak, Corporal. And he's like, yeah, he goes, this young fella will fuck you up. And he's like, hey? He's like, he will fuck you up. He loves to fight. He's just bounced for 6 nights in Brisbane. He was from one of the same police stations that used to work with me. And he's like, he loves to fight. And he's like, so if you call him out, just be prepared. And so he come up and then he tried to be my friend. And I'm like, why are you trying to be my friend, mate? And so then he took a huge disliking to me then. When we did like the high obs ropes and like abseiling and stuff, he'd be like, no, you have to climb up hand over hand on the rope. Everyone else went and walked up the ladder. And he'd be like, recruit HOAD, you fucking climb back up. And I'd be like, all right, fuck you. I will climb back up. Fucking arms are burning, but I wasn't going to let him know. So, on the high wire obstacle course, and he's like, oi, 10 heaves. Heaves what they call pull-ups.
Yeah.
I'm like, 10 heaves. I'm like, fuck you, I'll give you 11. So that's always been my mentality is like, so then, we got on and he's like, oh, he's so lucky I didn't smack on. I said, hey, we march out in like 10 days, Corporal. And if you want to have a friendly, let's have a friendly. He's like, no, we've already marched out by then. And I was like, oh, okay. So like these days, fuck, if you heard of that, like,
big trouble.
I can tell you the dildo stories and all sorts of shit. Like, fuck. But yeah, it's gone soft. Like if you think about it, you want men to be men. You want them to be a war fighter. Not everyone's a war fighter in the army. As we say, some people fold blankets and drive trucks. But if you're a grunt, you got to have that fucking cunt about you. Like you have to understand that if you're going in to be a fighter, you got to fight. You got to have dog about you. And
what do you think about you fighting people that you don't care if they die because their religion? Like,
overseas, fucking insane.
Well, like in Afghanistan, that like
fucking insane, mate. Like I've never seen evil like I have over there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different breed of evil because, us four in this room be like, I'm going home to my wife. I've got a mum and dad. I've got brothers and sisters that love and care about me. I don't want to die for these dipshits if I can, over there, they're like, it's an honor. It's an honor to die fighting them.
Yeah, that's what they kind of like manipulate them that's what they God, like Allah will.
Yeah.
Is it
72 virgins waiting for them and shit? Like they legitimately believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you mainly fighting the Taliban over there? Whatever.
Yeah.
Who else were you fighting over there?
So Taliban was, so early stages of Al Qaeda were already like cells and stuff were up there. But so some of the worst fighters in Afghanistan weren't the Taliban. They were like freedom fighters, like they'd come over from Serbian special forces, like all these different people that were snipers and counter snipers. And they were like, they just wanted the chance to fuck up, white people, like, or non-Muslims. They just came. So for them, it was a holy war.
Yeah, because I think I seen it in the movie, because I always thought it was just Taliban. You were fighting Afghanistan, but there's heaps of different, I guess, gangs getting around that.
Yeah. So you had like your different militias as well.
Yep.
And they would literally be loyal to you one day. And then as soon as the Taliban come through and be like, hey, I'm going to kidnap your whole family if you don't, go and lay this IED for the Aussies. So they're working with us and then they're like, not getting my kids killed. And I can understand that, you know what I mean? Like, but then other ones would be like, I'll give you like basically, $50 put this bomb, and they'd be like, take the money, but the day before we might've been in that village clearing IEDs to protect them. The next day they get $50. They just don't give a fuck. But that's not for everyone. There's some amazing people in that country as well. Like, I could show you footage of meeting with village chiefs and stuff that, we stayed 2 days. So me and my boys had to sleep out. We found an IED and my boss was like, Jace, I need you there yesterday. And we were like, holy fuck. Well, we just got back from a patrol as well. So we were tired as. We went out, we'd left at 3 a.m. Went at 3 a.m, came back in at 12 o'clock. And so I told the boys, I'm a stickler for routine, eh? Like one thing I hate laziness is my boys had all the freedom in the world to do whatever they wanted as long as they did the soldierly duties when they came back. So if you've got your weapon, I want your weapon clean. I want anything that you've got, make sure your ammo's restocked, make sure your water's restocked, make sure your pack and everything's ready to go. So if shit goes down, you're not running around like a shit fight when your mates need you. And I'm like, as soon as you've done that, boys, time's your own. Get on your laptop, play COD, do whatever you want, ring your missus, talk to your mum. But always routine first. So I did it with them. So that way I was like, yep, as a patrol commander, I went and made sure I did all my shit with them. We had a coffee, generally get to feel how my boys were, like if they're fighting with their missus at home. Like I used it as a time to really look after my men. And so we call it performance punishment in the army. Is my boss knew, so he was a SASCAT and he'd come over to do his posting with us. And so as a major, he still had all his mates over there and stuff, but he had a very high warfoot tempo. So his warfooting was like, let's go find these cunts. Let's bring them out. Let's fight them. And so we excelled with someone like that, rather than someone else who was like, ooh, don't want to, go out there and probe the wrong person today, so we really loved having him. Justin was great. But performance punishment was like, they always knew Jason's going to be ready to go. So like they're all sitting down having lunch. I just made my coffee and I go, hey, the boss wants you in the CP command post. I'm like, oh, okay. I ran in there. He's like, okay, you've got 10 minutes to go and deliver your patrol orders. Come and back brief me on what your patrol is going to be in 10 minutes time. And I'm like, holy fuck. So but boys, you got 10 minutes to eat, get back in your gear and I'll meet you just outside the CP tent. And I'll go back in there and say, sir, this is what we're going to do. Like this is my patrol. Oh, that's my baby. Give what's called a patrol trace. Patrol trace is where you sort of like go, I'm going to go here, write down the checkpoints that I've got. So I might say like checkpoint Alpha, checkpoint Bravo, checkpoint Charlie. So that way, if we don't report a report line and they're like, hey, these guys did Bravo, but we haven't heard from them at Charlie, they should be there by now. They're like, yeah, India 36 Delta Sunray. That Sunray is what they use for commander. India 36 Delta Sunray, do a radio check. Well, yeah, but, 5 clicks off from the checkpoint, Charlie. But it's just a way of checking in on your mates. And so we went up this hill and my patrol trace was literally going straight up the back of this mountain. And I was like, I knew that I was going to get my boys wet. It was freezing cold at night, stinking hot through the day, like over 50 degrees in body armor. And then through the night, it was just like ice and shit. Like it was just freezing. And so I said, boys, we need to get there. What had happened was we'd found this IED and there was a small Aussie group that were up there and some of them are good mates of mine. And the Afghan army that they were with had gone, oh, we're not staying after dark. We're like sitting ducks for the Taliban. So they had intel that the Taliban was planning an attack. So the Aussies are like distress call, basically like, hey, we need backup. They're leaving us. It's only going to be the 8 of us up here. So me and my boys, we hauled ass to climb this mountain, took up the SR-25 sniper rifles, 2 extra machine guns like the GP Mag 58s and stuff. So we were there ready for a good fight. But on the way up, I stopped at one of my patrol trace checkpoints, which was like the Afghan National Police. And I said, oh, me and my boys are on our way up there. So if you see silhouettes on the horizon, don't engage. It's us. And I said, I'm going to say only 3 of us are staying there tonight. So the reason we did that was so that they'd be like, oh, only 3 of them. So they get on the comms to the Taliban and be like, oi, there's only 3 Aussies on the mountain tonight, so that way they'd, but we'd all be up there. We were all up there in an ambush position ready to get them. But yeah, we got up there after dark. They pointed out the IED and that to us. And we stayed on that mountain, cold as fucking night ever. In all my life, I've never been so cold that the cold just drained every ounce of energy. And like, it was a mental fight, like all night. Cause I said to the boys, we're packing it's a fighting patrol. You can't pack your jumpers. You can't pack anything. No sleeping bags. Like we're not getting comfy. Like as we've been told, it's a fighting patrol. So the comfort was second. War fighting was first. And my little fucking mate Dicko, little cheeky shit, he packed his like puff jacket, like, so he was sitting up there toasty as fuck on his puff jacket. And when I saw him the next day, and I'm like, you cunt, you know, he's like, I could fit it in. I'm like, okay, dickhead. I love my boys,
Yeah, of course. What temperatures are we talking? Like being on top of the mountain?
Below zero, easy.
Like, and you're just nothing but your patrol uniform.
Yeah, so, and because we've been wet going through the aqueduct, so we literally, when we went through, the fastest way to go is, because it was nighttime, when you go through the ANP, Afghan National Police checkpoints, if they've caught movement and they're not on your radio frequency, they'll just switch their PKMs, which is like our version of a machine gun, and they'll just start lighting up the last bit of movement they did, thinking that it's either the Taliban sneaking through, because they don't know it's us. And if you try and raise them on comms and be like, blah, 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 this is us, you know, we're moving, you know, left to right across the aqueduct, across the river. If they don't get you, they'll just, as soon as they see it, they'll just be like, move it.
So communication's pretty intense over there.
Yeah, big time. And they don't give a fuck at the best of times. So I said, boys, we're going a kilometre down. So that way they're not going to spot any movement we're doing. Unfortunately, that means we're crossing at the deepest part of this river aqueduct. And they were like, fuck, you're an asshole, Jace. You know, but they respected me after it, because when they heard horror stories of people and that sort of stuff, they're like, I said, my only job here, boys, is to make sure he's come home safe. That's my biggest job. And I'm like, yeah, we could have taken a shortcut and I could have winged it and had you go across. But what if he's got whacked by a PKM? I'd never forgive myself, because I could have just added an extra 40 minutes and gone a kilometre down, a kilometre deep and up the mountain, you know. And then when we got up there and they saw it was literally just the last of the Aussies up there by himself. And then another patrol come to escort them, but they had to go the easy way because they got to go on vehicles. But they didn't go on vehicles until we'd secured our checkpoints. So basically, you know, we were like the basically recon to make sure if we went out and we got hit or engaged by the Taliban, then they'd be like, okay, this area like can't go here. But because we did our route all the way up the back of the mountain, it enabled them to sort of go, okay, Jace has now got eyes on the mountain. We've got the SR-25 sniper rifle. We've got 2 Mag 58s up there and a tripod, so that like we could reach out and touch anyone for 3 kilometers. So it's sort of like for them, they were like, area secure, we can now push a Bushmaster up. Yep. A couple of Bushmaster convoys, pick all the boys up, drive back and aircon them. I'm like, you fuckers. So then the temperature plummeted. We'd been freezing cold, and then it just got to like about 1 a.m. And then it just like, there's a photo I'll send you later. It's of me sitting there with a battle umbrella. And what I normally do is if we took a battle umbrella and we had to do a hide in the day, we'd get our umbrella and we'd set this umbrella on top of us, and then we'd put like our cam netting, like, you know, like your sniper mesh and stuff. We'd camouflage that up, and like you put your hoochie cord and hoochie net and all that sort of stuff over it. So that way you're still covered from the rain and elements, but no one can see you. And then underneath that, we'd put like rocks from everywhere. So that way you would blend into your whole environment, but you had this like nice little umbrella that was enough room for you to move, have a drink, all that sort of stuff. And so I had my battle belly in my pack. I even pulled out my battle bell and me and Aussie were squished side to side, back to back, like just huddling. And like one would try and close their eyes for 20 minutes while the other one watched. And then like you couldn't sleep. So you just both sitting there shivering. And we even got the battle belly out and like tried to face it to the wind to try and take out any wind chill. But I've never been so happy. I think when the sun came up, I came in my jocks. I was so fucking happy finally to see that sun, because as soon as it hit you, it just sort of like started thawing you out a bit. Yeah, and I'm like, fuck, I love this sun. Yeah.
How many times did you have to engage in combat with Taliban?
None direct. Like every time they did something, they hit like some of the other patrols and stuff sort of coming in. We were very fortunate. We did get engaged, but there was never any ability to sort of return, because rules of engagement for Aussies are shit. Give an example. Like we had to do a clearance patrol one time. Me and my boys came around the back of the mountain, and we were coming back up, so patrolling along the bottom side of the hill, and 2 little tellies come around and fired an RPG at us. But as soon as they fired the RPG, they dropped the RPG and started running, the pair of them. So they're no longer engaged. They're no longer combatants because they've dropped their weapon. So my lead marksman, Winky, Chris was like, Jace, what do I do? Jace, what do I do? And it was a really big learning lesson. When I went back and wrote my patrol report, I was like, this is so shit that one of my soldiers, he was a crack shot, went on to become a sniper and everything, Chris, but he was such a crack shot that he was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like, he's running away, and I'm like, fucking whack the cunt. He just fired an RPG, went straight through the middle of us. And then another one, the second one they fired. So the boys initially thought it was like blokes fought because our firing range was on the other side of the mountain. They thought, oh, fuck, the boys must be firing, and lobbed one over the wrong way. And it's gone over the hill. But no, the first one was like the RPG hitting the dirt and boom. So the second one whistled straight through the middle of us. And but as soon as they fired their two, they dropped it. So the two that they had, they dropped and started running. And and I was like, this is so shit. So I took them back and we did like actions on, actions off drills and stuff to go, next time, I'm always going to back you up. But how do you know that if he's dropped that weapon, he hasn't got another weapon? Like, ROEs don't protect you, but we will protect you.
So how's that work? So if anyone in that territory is not holding a weapon, you can't fire at them, pretty much.
Like another example is like on one of our last patrols, we went through a place called Gurge's Eye. I'd gone out and done a village meet with one of the village chiefs. It's another village. We spent a couple of days sleeping out in the open because, again, the engineers found an IED. And it was so far, it was like a 15-kilometre patrol out. So we went 15 Ks out by foot, slept in the village for them. And the villagers were like so happy that we'd come there because like they have this thing called a death notice. And so I come and knock on your door as a Taliban. I'm like, you've got 24 hours to vacate. You take your family and everything else. If you come back in 24 hours and you're here, we're going to kill all of you. So this death notice, we were lucky enough to start getting to some of these death notices because they trusted that we were there to do a fighting patrol and that like our boss was great. He would literally let us go on patrol out there and sleep in the village and go, if they're going to come, they're going to come. So we were actively waiting for them, and it fucked up their tactics because they're like, hang on, now they're sleeping here waiting for us. So, I've got some funny stories for that one, but, on that particular one where we'd set up an ambush, we had night vision and stuff where they didn't. So the first night we were there, a dicko again, is we have radio silence. So I've got 3 radio nets. One is to talk, to a battle net. One is to talk to company headquarters, and one is to talk internally to my boys. And so we're all silent. I'm like, if you need me, you go 3 presses, because one, if you bump it and you're like, well, one's a bump. Dickhead was, moving and bumped his button. But straight away it was like everyone alert. I mean, someone's seen something. And Dicko was like, I'm like, what the fuck, Dicko? And and so I didn't know if he was like leaning on it and falling asleep. And then we get this, Jace, Hody. I'm like, just fucking say it, mate. And he's like, there's 2 guys crawling up the aqueduct and they've just dug something out of the water and now they're starting to unwrap it. And I'm like, well, fix your weapon on it, mate. And he's like, my weapon is. So as soon as he flicked his safety switch from safe to instant, which means fire, they heard the little click and they went. So they had no night vision, but they were so close to us that the click of the safety switch coming over was like, imagine like, 2 in the morning.
In the dark.
Yeah, middle of the night. And you hear this click and they just left it where they were. And they just left literally everything where they were. And so it ended up, there was like weapons and they covered them in grease and left it where it was. We just marked the spot and that sort of stuff. So we can't touch it. Engineers got to clear that. So I just mark it as a patrol trace and stuff. And, and then they got out of there. And then Dicko was like, I should have shot him. I should have done this. We let Taliban go. And I said, no, what you did is you operated in your rules of engagement, mate. It's so shit that's what we were given. They could fire at us from anywhere. One day we had a guy popping off with a 22 at us and we're all sitting on the hill and we're like, yeah, not effective fire, not going to return fire. My boys are like, that's the boss's call. I'm like, if it gets closer though, boys, just light up that direction. Like between 2, like he was way too far away for the 22. to be effective. But I'm like, I don't care, mate. It's still going to sting if it hits you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, like it's a wild country.
So were Australians actually on the front line like
every day?
There was Aussies.
Every day,
you were just
mate.
in a different area kind of thing. That wasn't as.
No, we were out like furthest base north.
Yeah. Okay.
The only one north from us, they were in the shit every day.
Yep.
Every day they stepped out, they were in the shit. And we lost boys from that patrol base, you know what I mean? Like really good boys too. So I guess everything that happened to us, like they laid IEDs and stuff on us. We got blown up like twice in the Bushmasters and stuff. So like we had boys go home and everything. So like our contacts were sort of a bit different. And the first time we're going up the hill and the Bushmaster went, it just fucking lifted that thing like nothing, sent it back down the hill, you know, and there was like broken ribs, broken thigh bone, all sorts of stuff. And so my boys responded to that beautifully, you know, and like that was literally, I think we'd been in country 3 days. So like the night before, they hated me for it at the time, but the night before I'd written out all these injuries and put it in their left pocket. And so I said, after you've had dinner and stuff, guys, we'll just sit around and like I'll get everyone to pull out something from their left pocket. And so they're like, yep, gunshot wound to the stomach, you know, like sucking chest wound to the chest from a bullet to the chest. And we go, how did we treat this? You know, one of the ones I had was a snapped thigh bone, because a snapped thigh bone can kill someone from shock, but also because if it takes out an artery and stuff in the way, like the shock and the artery combine, in like 12 seconds, they can be gone. And so they did that and they were like, oh, Jace is being overboard, you know, like we just want to relax. It's nighttime. And, but everyone went through their pockets. I pulled out mine and we all had different scenarios. And literally when that went the next day, we actually got a good appraisal from the boss as well as our platoon commander that saw it all happen. He's like, you acted like you'd done it before. And the boy said, we literally did these drills last night. They did the snapped thigh and everything else. So that it was so funny because I'm like, yeah, not doing that again, you know, but everyone just went straight into autopilot. And, yeah. And one of the guys was a captain that just wanted to go on a joyride with us. And, he was hanging out of the hull, like one of them where they normally put a machine gun. And when it got hit, it just lifted and threw him out, just threw him out. We thought he was dead when we saw him. But there, Aussie patched him up and stuff, you know, and got him out and the chopper came in. So he carried them boys, put him on the chopper. We got hit again, you know, like, but as far as them like contacting you and stuff like that, the other boys up at Marshall and other areas, they were hit all the time because they were almost by themselves. And, they wanted to fight, but they wanted to fight they could win. Yeah. So, I started talking about Gurges. Like, yeah, it was our last patrol. Fucking Dicko didn't tell me that he had massive diarrhea because he didn't want to miss out on the last patrol. And so, Jace, I've got to take a mad shit. I'm like, okay, mate. I'm like, why didn't you do it before we left? He's like, I did. I've got the squirts. I'm like, fuck. And I look over and he's got his pants pulled down and he's squatted up against the tree with his backpack and his back up against the tree and his legs out at a 90-degree angle, and there's just this and we're just watching this fountain of shit fly out his ass. And we were like, fucking hell. And so the other boys are starting to film him and stuff, as you do. And then I got to the point that he was doing it so much that I was like, we're going to have to bag him. Like, you're losing so many electrolytes. We're going to have to bag you, mate, and put an IV line in you because, like, we're by ourselves. We had no one. And so we were sent out a lot. Is our boss, for his terminology, was a hunter-killer team. Is you go out to hunt and hopefully someone tags you and, you know, you go on a killing patrol. And so, again, that was his mindset, you know what I mean? Like, whereas a typical infantry officer would be like, you've got a clearing patrol or a fighting patrol. Whereas having a SASCAT as our boss, he was like, it's a hunter-killer patrol, you know? So we were like, yeah, we love this bloke, you know, like, and that's what you want to be. That's what you want to go there for as an Aussie soldier, is you want to go there and do your job, not be wrapped in, you know, bubble wrap. And so I was thinking like, fuck, like I'm too far in to get him picked up. But he didn't want to miss it, and I didn't want him to miss it as well. So I went over and had a chat to him. And while I'm chatting, he's fucking pulling his pants down again, back up against the next tree. I'm like, mate, we're going to hydrate you. It's the only way we're going to be able to keep you on patrol, because if something happens, mate, like I need to be able to know that we've taken care of you and we're not worried about you. And now we're worried about a firefight, you know, to our front or to our flanks. And so he's like, no, I'll keep pumping fluids. We went out and we met all the villagers, you know, said g'day to everyone, all that sort of stuff. Like a lot of other patrols had sort of started happening in that area from different places. The Americans had arrived because the Dutch had pulled out. So there was a lot of activity in that region. And so when we went back around and we're coming back through Gurge's Eye, it's called atmospherics, and atmospherics as a patrol commander or, you know, as a section commander, it saves boys' lives. It literally does. So atmospherics is looking at where the land was, what the environment was like, you know, what the pattern of life was like, what people were doing. Everyone was happy. When we came back through, but we were like another 500 meters parallel of where we'd been on the other side of the farm, the properties. And these boys, like there was tractors still left running. There was like grinding machines, you know, like where they put all the wheat and all that sort of stuff, all running, but no one manning them. And so atmospherics, I was like, hey boys, take a knee, get in cover. And so there's a photo of me where I'm looking back over my shoulder like this. And that's where Aussie was like, Jace. And he took this photo. I love the photo because I was in the middle of talking to company headquarters and requesting aerial supervision so that they could get UAVs and stuff up. And I'm like, I'm thinking, here we go. Like atmospherics speak volumes. And the only reason they'd be out of those fields is because a firefight's about to happen. So the Taliban are clearly here and they're clearly setting something else up on us. So I then automatically had to do like an adjustment patrol. I'm not going to walk my boy straight into it. So then I'm like, we call like a what, at this time, at this place, this is what happened, all that sort of stuff. So I quickly gave an at what to my boss. This is the atmospherics, environment's changed. And so on my map, I said, if I was going to like ambush my patrol, I'd be set up in this location here, because you come from this basically like all this aqueducts and bridges and stuff to this open field. And then it sort of like created a funnel. So I'm like, we're going to walk straight into this fatal funnel of gunfire. I'd be there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push back 500 meters. And we call it a box. So push back. And then they're still here looking this way, but then we're going to whack the cunts coming from this way. So we did that. One of the villages, I had my own interpreter too. Like it was really good. Like not many people had their own full-time interpreter, but because where we were and because we were by ourselves a lot, we had our own full-time interpreter. And he saved our lives numerous times, literally saved our lives numerous times, just by the ability to go, hey, that person there, they're not native to this, you know, area. They're wearing a different turban. Like that's not how we wear it in this part, you know, and then that person there is dressed different, you know, so we'd be like, holy shit, you know, so we'd arrest them and stuff. Like, fuck, that's another story. But yeah, I'll tell you about one we arrested later. We got down, and so what they did is they realized, so the villagers said, hey, like the Aussies are coming on you. They're coming from a different direction now. And how they used to sound, this will fucking light you up. How they used to sound their warning system is their donkey, and they'd squeeze its nuts. Oh, so what? if you're at this koala, and I squeeze, and he squeezes, and then as soon as we're like next to the next one, bang, off goes another donkey. Yeah, you get to another one, and they're like, oh, but they're there. So like it's fucking medieval, but it worked. You know, you squeeze a donkey's nuts and he fucking doesn't like it. So he gives a good bellow, and that says to them, that's where the Aussies are. That's where the Aussies are. So straight away by them doing that, they knew straight, and dogs were the worst. Those dogs were like mini horses over there, eh? Half of them with rabies and shit. But the dogs would chase you literally to the point that like you've got a muzzle in their head pushing them away. And like, yeah, one step closer, like just whack it. because no one wants to risk getting bit by one of those fucking massive things, man. Like they were the biggest dogs in the world I've ever seen. And they literally were used to guard the homes. So, and also as an early deterrent and warning system to let them know that there's a patrol there. Because, you know, they might have night vision, but they've got dogs. You get 100 meters within that koala and that compound you're supposed to be looking at or sort of sneaking into. Those dogs just come out, go bark, and, you know, 5 or 6 of them come charging you. And so then they're like, oh, they're in this area. Next lot of dogs go, they're in this area. So dogs and donkeys was sort of like their natural communication system. Yeah. And so they were like, oh shit. And then the village is like, yeah. So one really weird story is my interpreter said, you have to make it look like you're going to bash this man up. And so the stupid thing is he's like, I'm like, why? He's like, because they know where they are. And one of them, he knows that they've got eyes on you right now as a spotter. And if he's seen talking to you, they'll come back and kill him because they'll think that he's told you. So he said, and I said, okay. So all he did is he laid down behind a log, and my interpreter started kicking a log and stuff like that to make it look like he was kicking him, you know, and then he yelled out and he's like, they're not helping, blah, blah, blah. You know, villagers are no good. So that way anyone watching be like, oh, good. They didn't say anything, you know? So like little things like that you don't really hear about unless you've been on the ground to experience it. It's like, fuck, it's a shit society, you know, where you're trying to keep your family safe. You're trying to get him inside. But as he was trying to get his family inside, I said, stop, you know, like, you clearly know something's going on, mate. Tell me. And so, yeah, they left all their weapons where they were. They ran straight into the village, and they dressed in female clothing and stole motorbikes from the villagers. And that's the only way they got out of there, because they realized that we're not rules of engagement, not allowed to engage, not allowed to stop, not allowed to inspect, you know, not allowed to pat down, not allowed to touch a female. So they knew our rules of engagement and used it against us. So yeah, 5 little fucking blokes looking like nuns driving off on bikes, you know, got off scot-free. But, you know, 5 minutes earlier, they were ready to pull the triggers on their machine guns. But we'd got on them that fast that they had no idea we were there. But yeah, everything was left there. So again, we don't touch it. It goes to engineers and all that sort of stuff because it could be booby trapped. You know, like they might go, yep, let's leave them there. We've got them booby trapped. There's a grenade. It's pulled to a trip line. There's so many things over there. Like, yeah. So again, we don't touch it because we're like, oh, I'll go get that PKM as a souvenir. You know, so yeah, and Baghdad was shit for that. Yeah, shit for that.
Baghdad, is that Iraq?
Yeah. Yeah. That fucked up heaps of people mentally, like.
True.
Yeah. They'd do stuff like they'd get a young kid and they'd drug the young kid. They'd cut the kid open, put an IED inside, you know, and then sew him back up, and then said, you know, go to the Australians, go to the Americans, you know, they'll need you for help. And so they'd be all dope, not knowing what's going on. They just know they're in pain. And so they'd walk up to a patrol base, you know what I mean, or a base, knowing that to get help. And they'd have someone sitting there with a remote switch. So that way, if they didn't get towards, they'd just blow the kid up. And I happened to be on post with an American that had just seen it 2 days earlier. And he was so fried. Like he later, you know, like took his own life and stuff because he's had a daughter the same age. And he was telling me, he goes, all I can see is my daughter, you know, and instead of that girl walking towards me, because he had to go stop, point his weapon at her and stuff. And so she's confused. And the sniffer dog had to go out and sniff, you know, to make sure. And as soon as the sniffer dog, you know, sat down and was like, yeah, there's an explosive there. They call the dog back. And then the bloody Al-Qaeda boys, you know, like they blow them up on the spot anyway because they realize they're not going to get any closer. So they're like, just blow the kid up. And yeah, so 2 days later, I'm like, it's just fucked, mate. Like they didn't pull him off of sentry duty. They didn't do any of that sort of shit. And he goes, you're the first person I've spoke to about it. I'm like, oh, what, mate? You know, so when we tried to catch up with him later that day, just have a chat to him, and yeah, he bloody topped himself, poor bugger, you know. Like, so it's all those sorts of things. Like there's different kinds of evil, you know. Like, yeah, Baghdad was evil, fucking evil.
That's crazy. That is evil, very evil.
Yeah, I nearly shot a kid in the head. Like I still to this day, I'm amazed that I didn't shoot a kid. We had gone. The Australian ambassador was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone tells us. We're going. And we're like, oh, you dickhead. So we had to go do a clearing patrol in Baghdad and like so did a reconnaissance route. And most dangerous thing to do is do a recon because then they go off. If they're doing a recon patrol, the Aussies must be coming back. So then they're on high alert. And this was at Sada City. So Sada City was the worst place in Baghdad. It was like where all of the extremists and all the diehards were in Sada City. So Sada City was just like complete chaos. Mm-hmm. So they said, no, we want to do a show of force to show that we're not scared. They had the intel had the threat report and everything come through saying that, they're going to target the Australian patrol and everything else. Normally they'd target the Americans, and it's not easy to identify each one. We all had our flags flying because some of the times we were saved is we'd literally gone past patrols in the Baghdad highway and they'd be like, oh, it's Aussies. Not let the Aussies go. And literally the convoy 500 meters behind us would be Yanks and they'd blow them up. And you go, boom, and turn around, there's black smoke behind you and be like, keep driving, because it's not our patrol. The action's on us just to punch through the engagement zone. But yeah, they hated the Americans that much that they'd be like, oh, line the Aussies up and be like, oh shit, hang on. Americans are following. We'll wait for them instead. Get them to line up. They've got a landmark or something there, whether it's a pole, whether it's a like little dish they've put on the side of the road or something. So as soon as the front car comes in line with that dish, they go, okay, bang, it's going to take out the car, So yeah, crazy shit seeing that. That happened quite a fair bit. Just turn around and be black smoke behind you. But we did this clearing patrol. And when we actually went out for real, I was the shooter this time. So I was the first shooter out of the hatch, first vehicle, first shooter. And so my arsehole was just like this the whole time. Like anyone says they're not scared, man, it's full of shit. You're standing there just with your midsection out, a helmet and a weapon. That's it. If someone says they're not fucking scared, then they shouldn't be in the role, because fear is your body's natural way of telling you that something could happen. And like I said, there's a really good book from one of the Vietnam boys called Fear Guide My Feet. And I always I read that book before I joined the army, and I always thought, fear guide my feet he said, fear keeps you alive. Fear keeps you smart, keeps you switched, keeps you alert. Like once you're complacent, people die. And so I was like, so that time I was just like scanning all my arcs. Anyway, this little kid, he would have been no older than 9, 10, come running out with this AK and pointed an AK straight at me. And I had a Wildcat, and a Wildcat is like we use them almost like a mini sniper scope. We've got like up to 8 times zoom on it. So I'm looking down at this kid at 8 times zoom. He's only no more than 100 meters away. So I've got, basically the color of his eyes, facial expressions and everything else. And I'd gone straight from safety, had gone straight to instant. So I was lined him up. Trigger pressure was already coming on, because I don't give a fuck if you're male, female, or kid. If you pull a trigger on an AK, it's indiscriminate. It doesn't care what it's going to chop in front of it. As soon as those rounds leave that barrel, it's just going to fuck up anything in its path. So I'd already made the mental switch that if he points it at me, I'm going to smack him. Hated the thought of it, but I still had to. So trigger pressure's on. How a round didn't come out my barrel, it still fucks with my head today, because I'm so glad it didn't. But I just happened to catch a little bit of orange. So because it was so zoomed, I caught a little bit of orange, which told me it was a toy. And I went from there straight to safe, and I started looking, and I was just shaking my head. And then all the adults were laughing and then going, and laughing, because to them, they didn't care if I'd have whacked the kid. They would have loved for me to whack the kid, because then they would have had everything they needed to just go nuts and, open up on us and stuff. Like, imagine the news, everything else. Aussie soldier, shoots a 9-year-old boy in the head with a toy gun and everything else. Like, that's how quick shit can happen. And I literally, to this day, I relive that all the time. But because there's only a couple of pounds of pressure on a trigger switch there for your weapon. And I'd already made the decision to send that round down, because I was looking at that barrel and that barrel was looking at me. And it's only when as I was going through, and I could see his facial expression and everything else, and he was sort of like smiling and laughing. And I'm like, that's the only thing that made me pause, was the smiling and laughing. Is I thought, hang on, there's no accuracy in his aim. Is he just going to spray? All this goes at like 1,000,000 miles an hour through your head. And then I just caught that flash of orange, and then I fixated on that orange, and I was like, oh, fuck. So that's it. Just boom, boom, boom. Yeah, so.
That's crazy, Jace. I think we'll have to leave it there for today, bro. But for sure, have to get you on.
Oh, fuck yeah,
100%. Once we're back
Many
on.
more times, bro. Like,
yeah, I got fucking so much shit
Oh,
to do
God.
about it.
Yeah, I know.
100%, bro. And before we go, you got your beer strings here, like you
Yeah, they're
said,
for you boys, eh? Yeah.
Oh,
just
that's
this
mad.
week. So if you haven't, what you want to give them a rundown of what we got here?
Yeah. So these are the second flavour we've got, eh? Like the so these ones are sour gummy. Yeah, fuck it, I'll crack one open too. Have it with you, boys.
That's mad.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks for having me on, boys. I really appreciate it, eh? So
Great storyteller as well.
Oh, 100%, bro.
And then on.
good thing is this one's all true.
Yeah.
As I said, I normally like Uncle Chop Chop, you know, like, don't let the truth get in the way of a good yarn, but this is all shit I've lived, you know. So like this actually came about from Baghdad. We're up on an OP, and I watched another shipment of drinks arrive, and they called it rip it and drink it. And I was like, why are we buying, you know, all our drinks and stuff as Australians? Why are they buying all our drinks from America? Shouldn't we be supporting an Australian company? And they're like, HOAD, there's no Australian company, mate. I'm like, fucking, there will be. And so I started way back then. That was 2007. 2010, I was working on my first design for an energy drink, and I looked into it, but I just didn't have the money. Like we had our second child by then. Caden was born, so money to invest, because it's fucking heaps.
Yep.
The money just wasn't there to invest it and stuff. And so then I was doing another course in the army, and I really decided, like, what do I want my energy drink to be like? So then I was like, I don't have the money, but I've got good mates. So I literally approached a few good mates and said, look, this is my idea. I can do it myself, but it's going to take me twice as long. But I'd love to bring it out to a few shareholders. Would you like to come on board? So we said, okay, if there's 10 shares, 500 shares, 50 shares each, split it up between your misses, whatever you want to do. So 25, 50. But that way, the cost of an order, is at least going to be divided by 10. So we got the first one in. Our first one, I told them right at the beginning, you're never going to have your first order as a profit. We've got to pump the drink out. Like, excuse me, it's coming back out. The second one, hopefully we make green, we get in the green for our second order. But we're still, like I said, you have to be realistic. We're competing in $1 billion industry, with a little old fucking Gladstone energy drink. But when the people have it, they're like, holy shit, this is legit. And so, like, we've got a delivery run going down to Brisbane next week, because we've got a couple of MMA, a couple of Muay Thai, and a couple of BJJ clubs. Are like, that's awesome. We've been waiting for they didn't want the sugar one. But like, as you see, this one here.
Zero.
Zero sugar, but it's got your creatine and stuff in it. So we've got a gram of creatine in it. Like, your body that can only absorb a certain amount of creatine each time, and you don't need the creatine load now with the type of creatine and stuff. It's not the old creatine monohydrates. When we were young, you used to have 5 grams, 5 times a day to creatine load. It's not like that anymore. Your body pisses out more than a gram. I wanted alpha GPC in it. Alpha GPC is your brain fuel. So as I was saying earlier, like, if you have a brain injury, they're going to pump you full of alpha GPC and stuff like that to regenerate your brain and stuff. And like, they did blind studies on alpha GPC, and they had they put it in coffee, and they took coffee out of like this big lawyer firm, and they put coffee with alpha GPC in the lawyer firm, and only the owner knew that it was alpha GPC infused. And after a month, they said, what's in? He goes, mate, my reports are through the roof. My people are so focused. They don't take smoke breaks and that anywhere like they used to. They're happy. Like, they're at the end of the day, and they're like, and he's like, this stuff is magic. So before they told anyone, they took alpha GPC coffee back out, put the normal coffee back in. And a month later, they did another review, and he's like, mate, they're all like, their performance has dropped, everything else has dropped. So that was the first study they ever did, was for a lawyer firm. And I was like, because I've always a stickler for studying everything I can, PTSD means you don't sleep much. I've got major depression disorder as well. So the only way to keep myself going is I'm fucking fixated on shit. And I want to try and make the world a better place. And I'm like, if I can make an energy drink from Gladstone, that is a massive competitor around the world. I don't want it to be just like a Red Bull or a V or a Monster, like, I want it to be different. Our first one, we only had enough funds to make our original we like took us 18 months for Joe and I to get the recipe right. We paid all by ourselves. Joe and I paid for all these different samples and all this stuff to get made. And then we hit the one that we wanted. I'm like, that's the flavor I want. And it's real fruit juice in the original. And that's why people are like, there's no like aftertaste and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because it's real fruit. The shelf life isn't as long because it's not preservatives and stuff. But this one, getting it packed, you know, like branched chain amino acids and stuff in this. So it's now, it's a hybrid drink between a sports drink and an energy drink. And so like with Africa like want to order like 7,000 cartons or something. So I'm like, fuck yeah, boys, you can order that if you want.
So you're already getting a bit of traction from it.
Oh, people are like, I just made an MMA design and it literally the slogan was for fighters by fighters. And that's just, it's a 500 ml can and it's just packed with like 3 times the ingredients and stuff in here.
Shit.
But they're like, if we can get this over here. And my mate, Saido was like, Jace, can you get vodka? Can you put vodka in the energy drink? He said, Africa will go nuts. I'm like, funny enough, we've actually already got the samples in. We did raspberry vodka. We made one called Beast Bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beast Bourbon, and we did the Beast Rumbo.
Make it plays.
I think Joel was saying that last time actually that you were getting into
Yeah. So like it's a long process to get that legalized. Yeah, because there's so much more paperwork than, like I said, this took us 18 months just to go through the government leaps, FDA, food distribution, all your approvals and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not going to rush something that I want to change lives. So even after our first order, we've just signed a deal for Valleys. We're now sponsoring under 15s next year. We're sponsoring them at Beast. So they get to train 2 times a week at Beast for free for the whole year. And we're also, Beast Fuel is now their major sponsor. So we should be on the front of their jerseys and stuff like next year as well. So yeah, so it's like, I'm trying to look after my own community first. So we've got a few shops that have been loyal to us, you know, and so we're trying to keep it sort of like, we don't want to put it in every shop. If these shops have been loyal to us first and go, no, you got to go to those. If there's 6 shops in Gladstone, go to those shops and support them. Because we took free cartons to like probably 30 shops and said, there's no risk on you guys to stock and sell this. And half of them didn't contact us back. They sold the cans. And those that said, hey mate, this sold faster than V. And like Night Owl rang and said, hey, can I get 2 more cartons? Like I've got Red Bull and V still there, but your Beast Fuel sold out. Well, of course you can, you know? So it's like, we've taken our time to build a solid product so that people believe in the product when they have it, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So whereabouts for the locals, whereabouts in Gladdy, can you get the cans?
So Silver Grill just got restocked. They've been waiting for the new stuff. Night Owl at the Windmill, not Windmill, but he's at the
Coffee Club there.
Yeah, beside Coffee Club.
Yep.
40s, so 40 Spar at Sun Valley Roundabout. Yep. Yeah, he's there, and Craig's Bakery. So there's other little shops that get it every now and then, but every time they order, they're getting like 3-5 cartons now when they order.
Yep.
And I think we're taking 80 cartons down to Brisbane. Wow. So yeah, that's going to be good.
That's awesome, Jace.
That's awesome, brother.
It's unreal.
And yeah, it tastes amazing.
Yeah.
So
Cheers, thanks, fellas. And young veterans, I sponsor young veterans from this. So we're in, like I said, we're in the red from the first one. As soon as we get green from this one, hopefully, you know, like I've already donated stuff to young veterans quite a few times, but the whole plan is that the more this sell, the more that picks up. Like I can try and go, okay, Beast Fuel is now sponsoring like a camp retreat. So if there's veterans that are doing it tough, we can go, excuse me, Beast Fuel is going to pay for your sausages, you know, a couple of drinks, all that sort of stuff. You just turn up at the retreat and it's on Beast Fuel.
That's mad.
So that's the ultimate plan, you know. Like, and I want to sponsor our own athletes in the community and stuff. So we've got a few that we've been looking at as ambassadors. Yep. You know, and I'm like, you're a little bit too young to be running around with Beast Fuel. You know, there's always going to be those Karens that are like, what are they doing? You know, I'm like, so, but yeah, as I said, my mission is to try and create a better world before I kick the bucket, you know. So, and this sort of thing I can pass on as a legacy to my kids and everyone else that believes in it is I can cark it tomorrow, but this is already built, you know. So little things like that. Yeah.
It's unreal.
Respect the journey, bro. And like I said, he's amazing. Go get a can at 9 out. Do you also do ASN or?
Oh, dude. Yeah. So the reason ASN hasn't got it in at the moment, like I'm the actual longest ASN ambassador that I know of. But so I was just talking to Simon last week. He owns ASN. He loves the idea, but they don't sell sugary drinks anymore. Like they sort of like, and Ben will tell you here, Ben's a fucking legend here at ASNA. Like I love that guy. I will support him to no end. So I just dropped off, as soon as I got the arrival, I dropped him off his first 6-pack because ASN used to be like, more about bodybuilding and stuff like that when it first started in 2002. And I remember going to the grand opening in Brisbane for one of the first stores that Stu first opened. And I used to drive all the way from Enoggera Army Base just to go and get a drink or a protein bar to support them, So, those boys, Simon's like, Jace, I just don't want to put a sugar drink in because everything that we sell now is no sugar. It's like it's zero sugar this and zero sugar that, because it's gone from like a bodybuilding thing to now it's a fitness industry. And you got someone that's a swimmer. You got someone that, like is a jockey. You got someone that's, like a gymnast, and they have to be on weight. They have to do all these different things, and their calorie intake has to be specific. And I'm like, easy, Simon. The next one is coming is sour gummy. So last week, Simon messaged me. It's the funniest fucking message ever. He goes, Jace, this sour gummy is like Bigfoot, mate. He goes, I've heard heaps about it, but I've never fucking seen it. And I'm like, I said, Simon, it literally gets here on Monday next week. It was meant to arrive Friday, and the courier in Brisbane missed picking it up at the depot. So it's all been sitting down there, four big fucking pellets in the depot, but they picked it up on Monday. And I paid $1,020 to have it done on a drop lift because we've got no forklift. We're used to it at the old place. And they rocked up with 4 pellets and no forklift or anything. And so I'd like messaged a work party, had 8 of my mates come down, and we unloaded it by hand and just did an army train, off the truck, pass, and stacked it in the shed that way. So awesome. So I reckon it's going to, once it'll get trialled in ASN Queensland. And if Queensland takes off, I think Simon's plan is then to just put it, ASN Australia wide.
That's awesome.
So I really hope that happens because like, it's going to be great for business, don't get me wrong, but I want to get something that's Australian made, that's going to look after our own athletes. It's going to push back into veterans, and ASN pumps out more shit than anyone, you know what I mean? So to get it in there, honestly, great for beast fuel, but I think it'd be great to have that sort of thing building across the nation as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
100%, brother. Right. I appreciate it again, bro. And have to get you on definitely soon.
Yeah. Next time we'll talk about some fight stories or something else like that.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we've only just got the tip of the iceberg out of
100%. Really, so much more funny stories out either. Next time, remind me about remind me to talk about my interpreters in Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fucking funny story. I taught him Aussie slang, but it wasn't really Aussie slang, so it's funny as fuck, man.
Cheers, Jace.
Cheers, bros. Cheers,